Also, the next episode looks lit.
It's got Takeru. No, it doesn't.
Here's the new villain. We beat the new villain. We move on. Here's the new villain. We beat the new villain. We move on. Here's the new villain. We beat the new villain. We move on. Here's the new villain. We beat the new villain. We move on. Here's the new villain.
Run. Welcome to Pottages, your friendly 8-legged dog bus companion through the 2020 Digimon Adventure reboot. This week we're discussing episode 45, Activate, MetalGarurumon. I'm your host, Jeff Ruberg, and for my guest this week, I'm excited to welcome back the beardier half of Weekly Manga Recap. Welcome back, Nick.
Hey, thank you for having me on again.
I am glad to have you back on for some fresh perspective. So you're on for episode 10, MetalGarurumon's debut back in like August last year.
Yes.
Like a lifetime ago.
So whenever there is a metal Digivolution that gets unlocked, I guess that's when I have to be on the show. So
yeah, especially a metal G.
Yeah, I guess so.
When I was messaging you about it, I was like, "Oh, this upcoming episode is going to be the debut of MetalGarurumon," and I was like, "Oh wait, no, not MetalGarurumon, MetalGarurumon."
I kind of figured that you were either meant Wargreymon or MetalGarurumon, so I was like, "All right, well, I'll find out when I watch the episode." This is probably the most that I've ever been associated with metal, despite my best efforts in my life. So I appreciate you for facilitating that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal of the podcast, really, is to promote the Nick Freeman metal agenda.
Yeah. I mean, do you have any idea how many black T-shirts with skulls on them I own, Jeff? I've been trying to do this for so long, but it's only just coming through for me.
So I remember when I had you on for episode 10, my recollection was that you seemed somewhat invested in the show, but then episode 10 was like the point where you're like, yeah, I'm not going to keep watching the show. Like, I'm frustrated with the writing. And
yeah.
So is that kind of how it shook out? Like, you didn't keep watching after that episode?
Pretty much. I did watch a few episodes after that. I think that, I mean, I can't remember the last one that I watched, but I do definitely remember watching the Mega Kabuterimon episode, and I was very happy with that one. But that's all that I can really remember from that point. I stopped around the time that they were all getting their ultimate Digivolutions, and since I stopped, I know that multiple cast members have joined that I've had no context for how that played out. So I mean, Takeru's with them, and Hikari and all that. Apparently there was a thing that went down with Devimon that I didn't see, so it's fine though. I watched this episode, and I don't feel as if I needed to know anything that went down previously in order to understand what happened in this episode.
Yeah, it felt particularly like, oh, we arrived in a new place, and like they maybe mentioned the main thing they're going towards once in the episode, maybe?
Yeah, so they, during the beginning of episode recap, and I did watch a couple episodes prior to this just to make sure there wasn't some huge context I was missing out on, but it seemed like I basically just watched essentially 3 standalone episodes in this little journey that they're on, which is fine with me.
So which of the other two that you watched?
I watched the prior episode to this one was the one with MetalGarurumon and Anjouamon.
Uh-huh.
And then the one before that was the one with Edamon of Volcamon and Ponchomon. That was the other Togemon form, which I don't know exactly what this... I guess that there's been these alternate Digivolutions, kind of like armor, sort of.
Yeah.
Okay, I understood it perfectly. I got it. Cool. All right.
I think officially Ponchomon's been around for a while as Patamon's armor evolution. Like Patamon with the whatever egg, the sincerity egg that Mimi has, or whatever. So
okay.
I'm glad that of the episodes that you chose to watch, you found that one, because I think that is kind of the one episode that I would show to people who haven't seen any of the rest of the show, and like, oh, at least try this one.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had a good time watching that one. Like, I was watching in one room, and my partner Nicole was in the other, and she came out after I was done watching it, and she was like, "Oh, are you enjoying it?" So I was audibly enjoying it while I was actually watching it. So that's definitely, I do want to have some high praise for that. I think that overall, I liked watching that one more than I liked watching the one we're going to talk about today. But not going to say it was like, oh, I had a bad time watching this. I actually had a good time watching this one as well. I do have a question, though. So this is concerning, really, before we even get into the plot of the episode, this is stuff that's like being covered, I guess, every single time to let people like me who may not have been watching every episode know what's generally going on. So there is some returning evil threat called Millenniumon that is seemingly on the horizon, and they are trying to get to Faga.
Yeah, and
What's Faga? What does it stand for?
we have no idea. I mean, they've been capitalizing it. But
Okay, so I have some theories.
okay, I'm curious to hear.
All right, so the first one that I came up with, and unfortunately, I think this is my favorite one, is Florida Georgia line. My others were fig and grape ambrosia,
Oh, that's probably it. Yeah.
and farts are gross, comma awesome.
You know, if the final villain of this season was just a giant fart Digimon, you know, it wouldn't be unfitting. So
Look, the original series had Edamon in a main villain role for one saga. We can go the fart cloud route, sure.
yeah, I think the leading theory, and it's still just a theory, but like the theory that I see fans pass around the most is that there is a real world abbreviation that people sometimes use, GAFA, GAFA, to stand for Google, Apple, Facebook, and Amazon as like big tech as a whole.
Okay.
And I saw Faga is the same 4 letters, but I don't know. This doesn't seem to kind of show that's like going to be like the final villain is big tech. I don't think they're going to have a social commentary.
I mean, I was afraid that the insinuation might be that there would be a bunch of people in ugly red hats supporting an American politician. So I don't know. As long as they're in the villain role, I guess that both of those are okay too.
Well, what did you before I reached out to you and you checked out a couple episodes? What did you kind of like heard through the grapevine about the show in the months since?
I guess that I got the impression that people have kind of settled into what the show is, because I mean, it's been on the air for almost a year now. So I feel like people have kind of figured that out, and so I imagine that the reason I haven't heard as much about like, oh, this isn't like the original and stuff like that is because people just kind of like figured that out a long time ago, and they're just kind of judging the show based on its own merits. And so I kind of get a positive impression from what I've heard in terms of it's a fun time, and that's just kind of it. Uh, but I mean, I have a very limited scope of how people react to this in terms of like the people I follow on social media and stuff like that. I think that you are basically the one person I follow who actually keeps up with Digimon. So,
Well, did you feel like that was different? I felt like in the first couple weeks, like when the show first started airing, it was like lots of people reacting who didn't necessarily keep up with Digimon. It's like, oh, anyone who's heard of Digimon might react to these first couple episodes, but basically since then it's been just for the Digimon fans.
so there's been a kind of more like people just kind of appreciating the little things that are done in each episode that are little shout outs and that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think it feels like it has a wider audience in Japan of children. Like it has occasionally popped up on the I don't know what media outlet publishes it, but on Anime News Network they have like weekly anime popularity charts, and like it occasionally comes into the top 10 alongside things like Detective Conan and those like very mass market child friendly shows. And so I think it like, it has not totally secured the Western audience of older fans, but it seems like it's getting new kids at least.
Yeah, the way that things shake out in Japan versus pretty much the entire English speaking world in terms of who watches anime are very different audiences. It's a much more varied and wide audience in Japan, and a very narrow focus in English speaking places. So it's not surprising if there's a difference in terms of what catches on between the two.
Yeah.
Like I try to figure out, because of Weekly Manga Recap and the series that we follow, we try and figure out like what's doing well and what isn't. But ultimately, every single time we have to be like, I mean, maybe it's doing well. I don't really know. We won't know until like we have hard sales figures in front of us, and that's about it. So
yeah, and I don't even know like these days, like if like the people who back when we were kids were watching Fox Kids and Kids WB, like where does the audience go nowadays? Like I guess there are like kids programming, cartoons and programming that appeals to those kids. Maybe they're all watching things through Netflix. I don't know. Kids are a mystery.
There are still children's programming blocks that some animation do get dubbed and put onto, but I think it's just a matter of like because they are a lot more niche because pretty much all TV is more niche these days because there's so much more of it. Uh, that yeah, it just doesn't catch as much people's attention, and anime is more just associated with streaming platforms.
Yeah. I mean, even like Toonami, it's like, oh, this airs in the middle of the night once a week. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think that's kids are going to find that.
after everyone who's already wanted to see it has probably already watched it.
Yeah. Well, so I actually got a couple open-ended questions from at Injured Udemon on Twitter. It'd be fun to ask you, I think. For a couple times when I've had people on who haven't seen a bunch of episodes, I did like a quick recap to refresh them on everything that happened, but I think listeners are tired of hearing me do that. So I think you kind of got the gist of what's going on. So in lieu of that, we have these questions. So if Joe had a favorite food, what do you think it would be?
I can only imagine that this was made into like a joke because Joe's kind of the punching bag of everything until he gets to have his cool moments. But little things about like what he does for fun and stuff like that, I think are usually played for jokes. So I'm gonna say something really weird, like I don't know, sardines.
Unfortunately, incorrect. It was French fries, and there was an entire episode
Aw,
about how much he loved French fries and
really?
bonded with a Digimon made of French fries who also loved French fries and was
Oh,
upset that
uh,
a restaurant was canceling French fries.
what?
Yeah, and then that Digimon made of French fries evolved into a bigger Digimon made of potatoes and attacked the restaurant.
Man, why did I watch the Anjawomon episode? That one was just so plain in comparison to this summary. By the way, when I watched the Anjawomon episode, the main thing that I took away from it was, has Anjawomon always looked this stripperific? And then I looked up how she appeared in the dub on the original series, and yes, she's just always looked that way. I had no idea. I just completely forgot.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have heard people say that they had their sexual awakenings from watching Angelomon, and
That's not
it's not
surprising.
surprising, no, but
I saw like the multiple straps on her hip, and I was like, "There's no way they would have put like another patch of fabric in that out." No, they didn't. No, it's just right there. Also, I found out that Patamon can digivolve into Pegasusmon in this series, so there is armored digivolution in this series, but there's still no O2 crew around. So,
yeah, and well, actually, the second question that came in from Injured Ryudamon was what item would unlock a new evolution for Palmon, and you spoiled yourself. You saw that. You saw the
yeah.
Marakas. But on the topic of armor evolutions, the thing that is weird compared to the original series is there's no physical mechanic for it. It's just kind of
Mm-hmm.
Takaru and Patamon had a new bond, and that unlocked a new evolution. So it's a little weird. But next question: Metal Greymon has a new form based on a new elemental force. Can you guess which elemental force?
So this is. Are we talking like classic elements like fire,
Mm-hmm.
water? Okay. Fire would be the obvious one for a Greymon evolution or anything associated with courage. So I'm going to say Earth.
Close, I guess. It was electricity.
I thought that Garurumon got that one too, or where Garurumon. I guess that I was misinterpreting what the wing things were.
No, that kind of. I mean, the wing things, they're called Sagittarius mode, I guess because he kind of becomes an archer, but that's a bit of a stretch.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I mean, actually, the way this question was worded is a little confusing because Metal Greymon and Were Greymon both got like alternate forms, but Metal Greymon also got an alternate evolution into like a different,
Okay.
the form that I think is one referencing the Blitz Greymon, which is like an electric themed mega evolution. But Injured Readamon also sent in some true or false questions, which I reworked into a true truth and a lie segment. So okay, so I have two sets of two truths and a lie for you. Okay, so basic rules, obviously. Two of these are true, one of these is false. Joe picks up Zudomon's hammer. Machinedramon was a dark evolution for Taichi/Agumon, or Taichi's dark evolution caused him lots of trauma and regret that made him grow as a character.
So when these were just arranged as are these true or false, the one with Joe and the hammer made me go, okay, that had to have happened because I mean, you would just be being mean to Joe if that didn't happen by bringing that up. I would have actually suspected Machine Dramon didn't happen, but given how this series goes, I would imagine that it's got to be the third one that's a lie. That the Dark Evolution caused trauma and regret that made him go as a character.
Yeah, he was unconscious and he was eaten, and then Agumon evolved having seen Taichi be eaten, and neither of them remembers what happened. So,
Oh, cool. That's great writing right there.
yeah, it was entertaining to watch, but did it have any impact? Who knows? All right, so second one of these is a lie. The kids fell off the side of a continent. The kids are known around the digital world for murdering anyone they meet, and Sora never received an Ultimate Evolution. Garurumon has still not appeared in the show.
I'm pretty sure that I saw the episode where Garurumon evolved.
Oh no, damn it! I didn't plan for that.
Because that's one of the ones prior to Mega Kabuterimon, I think. Um, and I believe then the Edamon Volcamon episode, the kids do have a reputation. So I guess they never fell off the side of a continent?
I think you're confused. It's the lies that Sora did. Sora never received an Ultimate Evolution is a lie.
Oh,
yeah,
that is
because you saw
okay.
her.
I got you. Okay, I misread it. Okay, yeah, I understood what the truth was, but okay, yeah.
Because I thought that was.
I understood what you're going for there, like playing off of my expectations from last time, but
I would not have been surprised at this point. If I checked in this episode and found out that she didn't get one.
Garurumon and Greymon get 50 alternate forms each, and the others do nothing.
Yeah, they exist. They've gotten episodes at least, but they're not the exciting ones. Speaking of exciting ones, kind of. I guess we should jump into this week's episode. Episode 45, Activate MetalGarurumon, aka Runaway Locomon 2.0, aka The Fast and the Furious Garuru Drift, aka Digimon Motorcycles, aka Friendship is my anti-drug. Spoiler policy, we're talking about everything included in this episode, including the preview and stuff for next week, but nothing beyond next week, and no late-stage plot reveals for other Digimon seasons. A quick recap for what happened in this episode. Basically, the kids stumble on a Machmon going around a racing circuit. Gabumon wants to run, challenges Machmon to a race. Machmon gets violent once Garurumon passes him. Machmon tries to crash, and Garurumon passes out, protecting him. Then Machmon explains how the races came to an end, promises to race again and not get violent, and then, surprise, Machmon gets violent. But Koshiro detects the presence of Parisimon, and Machmon explains how he let Parisimon in and is planning to kill himself alongside Parisimon to get rid of the threat, and Yamato insists that they're Nakama, where Garurumon evolves to MetalGarurumon and destroys Parisimon, but then Machmon continues to keep trying to kill himself, but MetalGarurumon saves him, and they all run through the finish line together. Yay!
Yeah.
What did you? What were your initial reactions to the episode?
I actually really like this episode. I don't know if I would call it wholly satisfying in terms of, did it feel like it was big and important, stuff like that? And if we were to take the same, mindset that I had when we covered episode 10 or whatever it was of, oh, this didn't feel earned. Yeah, maybe it wouldn't feel earned, but you know what? If every episode seemingly is going to have, okay, one of the kids unlocks a new Digivolution, then this was more than adequate. I thought that it was a fun time. I loved how weirdly easy to kind of sympathize with Machmon was, and the very jock friendship that quickly spawned between he and Yamato and Gabumon. And that friendship means that you shouldn't take steroids that will take over your mind. And
Yeah, I think in terms of this, like the evolution feeling earned or not, like I can totally see how like it doesn't feel earned compared to like what people expect out of like the biggest evolution of the season or whatever. But it's coming off of a stretch of like Nick, when you were watching episode 10, it was like pounding out like evolution after evolution, just endless evolutions, and that pace kept up for a while. Then they kind of slowed it down, and then they introduced War Greymon a while back, and now it's been like a long time since we had a new evolution. Kind of, I guess we've had things like Ponchomon that have been kind of like one-offs scattered in there, but aside from that, it hasn't. It's been so long since we've had a new big evolution form that to me I was kind of like, yeah, maybe it's not quote unquote like technically earned, but it's like I've been waiting for like I've been waiting long enough that I'm like ready for it. So I appreciated it and felt I like the remixing of the structure of the show to make MetalGarurumon debut. Not that it makes more sense now or anything, but it's like, like everyone's always joked about how it's like, okay, Gabumon, goes to 4 legs as Garurumon, then back to 2 legs as Weregarurumon, then back to 4 legs, and it's like, oh, that's weird, and it's still weird in this presentation, but I think it's like kind of neat and kind of fun how it's like, oh, there's kind of a reason why he is a 4-legged Digimon again. Like there's kind of it feels like it is kind of natural with what Gabumon expressed as an interest in this episode.
It was like the Toonami original anime series IGPX, where they start off as giant motorcycles, but then partway through the race, they turn into bipedal Gundam things that fight. But then they have to race towards the finish, so they have to go back into motorcycle forms in order to get across the finish line first.
Sure, I know exactly what that show is. I agree with you. It also kind of the way you're describing it reminds me of Shaman King, and I think I've never actually gone through and read the full manga, but I think I recall hearing this was a original anime only thing. But that like they like it started off being like, oh, they fight with these like big ghost forms, and then it's like, oh no, this new stage of power is to condense the ghost into just this one weapon, and then it's like, okay, but this next stage is they become a giant ghost, and then it just feels like it's like each stage of one upping is like condensing down to this tiny thing, and then no, now the next thing is even bigger. No, now it's even tinier. Now it's even bigger. Now it's even tinier.
I think that a lot of anime like that have kind of done the same thing. I think Bleach made the exact same point of
Yeah.
it bigger means is more powerful. No, no, no. If it were that were the case, then no, no, no. Well, but now that they're really powerful, now it's got to be big. So yeah, it's just a cute little trick to like, okay, you know what, go back and forth to signify something's different, and that therefore it really feels different from the previous stage. You know, it's easy to follow along with symbolism.
Yeah,
So
like Ichigo's sword is like just alternates between giant and huge, or between giant and small. Basically, just flipping a light switch on and off, and like, surprise, caught you off guard.
don't get me started on Ichigo's forms ranges, but anyway, all right. So
Yeah. I also was surprised by this episode. Like, actually revolved around friendship in a way that I was surprised by how I guess it's like the two other Yamato focused episodes that we've gotten in the show, which you
mhm.
saw one of when where Gurman first appears, which felt very, very simplistic. Like, oh, he's going to abandon his friends. He didn't abandon his friends. Wow, friendship.
Yay,
And the second
yeah,
one
okay.
about like 12 or so episodes ago was more like he really has a partnership with Gabumon, friendship, and it's like, okay, that's kind. So like those two episodes set my bar really on the ground for how much the show needed to associate Yamato and friendship. And I was surprised by like the fact that like Makmon and Parasimon's relationship was like a dark reflection of Yamato and Gabumon's friendship.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, but you're right because Gabumon or Garurumon, whatever, stressed that he felt when Yamato was with him that he could go as fast as he could, and that's literally what Makmon having Parasimon attached to him does.
Yeah. And also the like I still feel like if we're looking at the like original crests of the kids and whatever, and like they Yamato and friendship, it's always been a bit of a tenuous connection, like in the original
Hmm.
show it's like, oh, he activates his crest or whatever because he doesn't completely give up Joe, or like it feels like always felt like more of a
Hmm.
tsundere kind of thing, like he doesn't, like he's frustrated by Joe, but like, oh, he actually cares, and that's enough to show
Oh,
friendship.
he only got a little mad at him when he broke the dishes.
Yeah. And this framing of it where it's like he and Gabumon are like actively reaching out to this Digimon that, like they're making a connection with him, they're kind of vibing on the same kind of, they both have the same kind of lone wolf vibe. Yeah, it just felt pretty fitting, and I was sold on the friendship connection here, even though this show has still not explicitly named the crests and might never name them.
Hmm.
But obviously they're well known to the franchises, to people who are fans of the franchise. So I think it's fair for us to expect that. And it was surprising how it didn't need to name it, but it still tied it into that theme pretty well.
Oh yeah, when they were having the moment where Garurumon is grappling with Makmon while they're going at high speed, and like Parasimon's biting his leg and stuff, and Yamato jumps off to punch Parasimon in the eye, and then they shout about how they're not going to give up on him because they're friends. Like, yeah, I believe that. I totally believe that that moment would let you turn into a cyborg, breathing, missile launching wolf. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I mean, any other conclusion makes no sense. I mean, obviously, Ice Breathing Metal Wolf. But
They can fly. It can fly now too.
oh yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
know if that was ever the thing that MetalGarurumon could do before, but it can definitely do it now.
yeah. I don't remember if I think he could before, but this time I was surprised by how they like showed his little jets in his paws moving him around. That I think that always was happening, but maybe wasn't as articulated in the original show.
Hmm.
Um, I, I, I also I do like Machman's like the struggle in this episode. It felt surprisingly dark for of a struggle for a character to have that they
Oh yeah.
uh are basically trying to commit suicide to this is the only way to get rid of this evil force that's taking them over or whatever. And that the very direct analog for it. We made jokes about steroids and performance enhancing drugs and stuff, and it's like barely even a metaphor. It's like he wanted to win a race, so he accepted this force into his body that is taking him over. And I feel a little bit uncomfortable though with how it so easily resolved, kind of, and like yeah, it's kind of thing that's like wow, surprisingly dark for this kids show. Also, maybe it's a good thing for kids shows to not handle such dark things because it is I don't know, pretty simplistic and a little bit irresponsibly so, but also I don't know, if it's doing this kind of thing once in a blue moon, okay, whatever, I'm not going to criticize it too much.
Yeah, it definitely wraps things up very, very easily. I mean, Makamon goes from wanting to somewhat nobly sacrifice himself because he knows that it's the best thing for everyone, because otherwise he'll shoot at people and try and ram his blades into them and stuff, because he can't stop himself from trying to win a race at any cost. To, well, they were still my friends, so let's cross the finish line together. Hooray. And there's no talking about it afterward. It's honestly, it's very suited to the type of character that Yamato is, where he doesn't talk a lot. He, has his cool lines, but he doesn't really embody the aspect of friendship where, you're willing to be open with each other and trust each other with what you're going through and stuff like that. He's just like, no, I will always stand by your side. And that's just kind of it. And probably if they were to go much further beyond the shot that the episode ends on, then the character that he is probably wouldn't have been conducive to the next steps that need to be taken to make sure that Machmon's okay.
Yeah, and I feel a little bit like, is it absurd to talk about like the mental health of this literal motorcycle?
Look, this show made me care about that D-wheel Digimon, all right?
But yeah, I think it's the thing that, like, as you were framing it, like that he goes from wanting to nobly sacrifice himself. For me, it was the fact that he goes from wanting to nobly sacrifice himself. It seems like the best option to deal with this situation to the Parasimon threat's been dealt with, and he still was trying to sacrifice himself, and it's not explained why. And you can kind of assume that it's like, oh, for all the dark deeds I did, like I have so much regret, and I should be punished for it, which I don't think it said, but I'm just assuming. And that's the point where it's like, okay, he's still trying to sacrifice himself for like once the cause has been removed. And at that point, it crosses over from like, like you classify depression, like, is there a cause or not? And, if people are doing it because there's no cause, then it's a much more serious thing. And at that point, they just resolve it by like catching him and being like, we're friends now. And it's like, oh, okay. I could have bought it if it's like they defeat Parasimon and then he's okay. But the fact that he still is trying to sacrifice himself and then he's okay, I'm like, okay, I don't think so.
I understand that you could probably say, well, it was a thing that he was kind of doing in the heat of the moment while the adrenaline was running high and stuff. And then maybe after, he got caught and was knocked back to safety at the moment of like, oh, right, I'm no longer being mentally corrupted. Maybe things are okay. But it's a very, quick sequence of events without a lot of explaining what is going on. So there's a lot of room for interpretation, and when you leave room for interpretation, you leave room for very dark interpretations of what's going on. And then you leave room for problematic interpretations. So, yeah, I totally see what you mean.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I'm still like, okay, there's not so far we can go into talking about the mental health of a motorcycle. So, like, I think the fact that it is such a non-humanoid Digimon helps in terms of avoiding the problematic angles that there could be if it was more of a humanoid character, I think. But moving on from that heavy topic, just random note, I loved how Joe was using his Digivice as a microphone.
Oh, that's what that was. That makes perfect. Okay, I was like, is he just playing pretend? Because that microphone stand's made of sticks, so he's not hooked up to anything. But if he's using the Digi device, that makes sense because he's actually just directly communicating to everyone. Okay.
Yeah, it was cute and actually makes sense.
Yeah. it was kind of weird because Koshiro is just kind of, he's like, I've got stuff to do, guys. You guys can have fun. I have a job to do. Because he just abandons them to do his analysis stuff. Everyone else is watching in the stands. Taichi's doing the he's being the flag waver basically, and the girls are doing cheerleading stuff. And Takeru's also doing it because he didn't come up with a job for himself to do, so he was drafted into doing something else. That's what happens if you don't give yourself something to do, is people give you something to do.
Or unless you're Taichi, and then you can just like stand and watch in the above the big dangerous turn thing.
Oh yeah, of course he gave himself the most dangerous thing to do. Dumb idiot.
Yeah, I'm not totally comfortable with that cheerleading thing. Like having the girls be cheerleaders, like, okay, it's cute and fun. It's a little bit too hetero and gender norm conforming. And then the fact that like Takeru's also in that outfit, it's funny as a punchline. I generally uncomfortable with them. The fact that he's so uncomfortable about it and it's like played off as a joke, his discomfort. But people enjoy it. I won't complain, I guess. But
I mean, I understand where you're coming from in terms of morals and values, and but I hate Takeru, so if he suffers, it's fine.
You just want to punish him, whatever he's uncomfortable with.
Yeah, find something useful to do. Free riding 6-year-old. Or however old he is, I don't really know.
I think he's 7.
He's a little bit older.
I never know these ages. Like, they're just nebulous children.
Right.
Well, yeah, I think we should move into some 3-word reviews.
All right.
First off, from @KingMillenniumon, Digimon Rallycross Wars. And they clarify that Rallycross is a form of sprint-style car racing, and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but...
Right, it's a long explanation, yes.
Just to clarify that it's not cheating because it's not 2 words. And so I'm like, okay, that's fair,
@Geo was here says need for Speedmon.
@Joseph Nosif, Digi Grease Lightning.
@Andy Lucas OE, Yamato's St. Louis Smash, which I believe is an All Might reference.
Yeah, I can never keep track of. Aren't they usually? I guess they're states and cities, right?
Yes, some of them are cities. Yes.
Is the series actually consistent with like which one means a particular maneuver?
I don't know. I'd have to check. Let me pull up the My Hero wiki and.
It would be funny if, I don't think it's the case, but like if you went to like New Hampshire's Wikipedia page and it's like in media, New Hampshire is the name of Deku's attack.
Oh god.
@Board Individual said Yamato for dive kick.
@Taikyomon says Speed Digivolves Weregarurumon.
That'd be fun if like if MetalGarurumon like just couldn't stop moving, and if he moves, he digivolves. Better than having him have a bomb on him, but.
Well, that's actually a requisite for performing a certain type of synchro summon in 5Ds. You have to be able to you have to go fast enough on your D wheel.
Sure.
Look, this is very important. I resisted making a billion 5Ds references. I only said it a couple of times. They're literally, he's a motorcycle and he's racing.
Wait, so there's actually like mechanics in that season of Digimon that tie into the motorcycles? It's not just a visual thing?
In that season of Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah, I mean, like the riding duels are a completely different type of duel. Like there's a certain type of spell you can use that you can only use in riding duels, and that are based in how fast you go, and the duel itself determines how fast you can go and stuff.
Somehow that sounds even stupider than I imagined.
Look, 5Ds is the best Digimon season, Yu-Gi-Oh season. You're making me.
Do we both do that? Oh my god!
You're frazzling me. You shush.
Yeah, I really should try out those trash Yu-Gi-Oh seasons. Do you actually think it's one of the best, or is this a joke?
Yes.
Okay.
It's the best. Okay, now admittedly, after the Dark Signer arc, everything kind of goes a bit downhill, and they completely forget about Aki having psychic powers, which is stupid. And listen, this is not a Yu-Gi-Oh podcast. I'll save you.
I mean, my impression was that like once it stops being the stuff adapted from the manga, it just goes downhill. But is that not fair?
I mean, it depends on how you feel about every season of Yu-Gi-Oh past the original. So I know that in general, people don't really look fondly on filler stuff in the original Yu-Gi-Oh series very well.
I remember as a kid, I really loved the Orichalcos arc. So
that was filler.
Yeah, maybe I'm just trash. So
Yeah, there you go. So your opinion of 5Ds has been rejected. All right. 3-word reviews.
Yeah. So at Dak and Jackster said, Mad Matt Furry Road. uh,
At Injured Ryudamon says, friendship on motorcycles.
and at DigiFan8 said, bad, bad, bad.
Mm.
Mm.
At PDX Anime, Koshiro, stop spoiling.
Yeah, I don't mind the next, like the analyzer sequence and then saying who it's going to be next week, except that it like coming before the preview
I wonder what's going to happen next episode. Could the visual of Magna Angemon have anything to do with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think early on in the show, those analyzer sequences were in the beginning of the episode, and it was even weirder there.
Yeah.
But I think it could go after the next episode teaser, and it would be a little bit more natural. But I don't know, I guess there's no good placement for it. At CRR McRae said, "I want to run."
At CC Takato said, MetalGarurumon debut anticlimactic.
At Austin LC23 said, "Adventure Runaway Loco Makban."
There's a lot of references on here to one of the seasons of Digimon I didn't watch. So
yeah, but basically there was, because I mean there might also be some listeners who haven't seen that movie. It's the movie for the third season of Digimon that basically features a runaway train Digimon called Locomon, and he turns out is possessed by Parasimon. So, but I don't think Parasimon.
Okay.
There's no like doping or steroid metaphor or anything. It's just an evil Digimon that appears and possesses a train, I think.
It sounds more like it would be a reference to speed than anything else. Yeah. At Golden Pelt says, fast and furious. My mistake. Yeah.
Yeah, the furry caught up in you there.
I get it. It's a pun. It's a pun. Yeah.
And finally, at Andy Lucas OE, Digimon on motorcycles. Yep. All right, so on to some listener comments and questions. First off, from at CR McRae, they said, I just went ahead and watched some of the Locomon movie, and it's just weird they used the Frontier music for it because Disney didn't get the rights to the Tamers music. Yeah, that was a weird time, and like I forget the timing of it exactly. I think it's like those movies were dubbed right after Frontier aired or something. But yeah.
So they had the rights to one series music, but not another. So they used one series music on a thing, on a work that belonged to another season.
Yeah, and it's like that music definitely fits in Frontier because it's like it has like a vibe that fits the Frontier world and feels very out of place in Tamers and the other movies. But oh well, I guess it's Digimon has always been full of weird localization and weird music and timing choices and stuff. But at PDX Anime said, pretty good episode. It did kind of remind me of that episode in Frontier about Beelzemon's bike, and I think they mean Tamers. But anyway, kind of funny how Adventure 2020 is kind of a love letter to the franchise with all kinds of cute references, all kinds of references and callbacks. Also, not to sound weird, but Cheerleader TK looked cute. Yeah, I do appreciate how it has all these references and callbacks, and especially like I mentioned before, like the fact that they took other references and put them in a place that made them applicable to MetalGarurumon and to Gabumon. Like, yeah, it's nice to see that, and it kind of is like, it feels like the kind of thing that like if you're going to do something with a new Digimon season, remixing these characters, what can you do with that? And this feels like a good answer to that question.
Yeah, I just kind of wish that, characters that they do remix had like a consistent presence to them more than anything else.
Yeah.
I don't mind that, like, if you're going to do something different with characters, and I don't mind it if you're going to have especially like villains reinterpreted very drastically, like turning Edamon from like a series villain into just a one episode off villain. Yeah, he's a comedic character, it's fine, he worked in that role, and I don't mind if you interpret your main cast very differently. It's just a matter of I would like, so I got this is going to let me go off on a little bit of the impression that I got of the episodes I watched. So obviously one of the characters that has joined the group since the time that I had stopped watching is Tailmon, or Gatomon as I know her better. And I got a pretty good, strong impression of her because she, is the one who's constantly talking about like things are different from the way I remember them. I get the impression she's kind of like a guide to the others.
Mm-hmm.
She's important for this season, stuff like that. So even as someone who has, lapsed on, being familiar with Digimon 2020, I did feel like I understood what she was all about and stuff. Hikari's episode involving MetalGarurumon, she has like 3 lines in. I mean, is she just a cute kid? Is that her entire character? And so that's, the good and the bad, the two different ends of like having a different kind of character. But as long as you keep on pushing that new interpretation, then that's fine with me.
Yeah, I think like I wanted to mention that episode too because it's like it's neat to take Digimon and like use him in that different role in the series. But I think one of the things that I didn't really realize until after I recorded last week's episode, and like I was I think fairly positive last week, and then I realized that like oh, I guess what they're kind of doing with Digimon is like putting him in the Wizardmon role. And once I realized that, I was like, oh,
Oh yeah,
that's not a favorable comparison.
way less satisfying.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
it's much less impactful, and it's kind of like you're talking about like it's oh you know like it's fine to put them in these different roles and stuff, but like it's disappointing if the way we remember it before left a much bigger impact in this way is just kind of like oh I guess that's okay. Yeah, so
Yeah. In a wrestling terminology, there's it's the term is long term booking, where it's great to have the big satisfying spectacle on the one show, but it encourages your audience to become invested in the overall product if you promise long term payoffs to things
mm,
you've set up previously. And it's great if you can do both. Have the exciting things happen on each individual show, but then have the overarching thing build and build, then pay off. Um, and so watching an individual episode is like, yeah, it can be fun when it comes to Digimon, but I don't think that I've seen a single thing that. Okay, actually, I have one question. So this is my one unanswered question. What's with the helmeted Appa that they're riding around on?
oh yeah that's
They didn't name it at any point.
yeah they never mention now because it's just like a part of the fabric of the world they just it's just there. um yeah it's called Commandamon and basically they I think it's in the episode so when War Greymon debuts I think when he appears they're basically like Taichi is saving a Lopmon in a forest and the Lopmon sees War Greymon and like it reminds Lopmon that Lopmon is actually one of the three holy Digimon. That it was Lopmon, Tailmon, and Patamon, right?
Oh,
And Lopmon is like, oh, well, to send you on your task, like basically gives another info dump that is kind of the same info dump from the beginning of the show, but a little bit different, a little bit more information,
okay.
and mentions Millenniumon as the thing that in the first half of the show, like in that episode 5 thing where they explained there was a big threat, and they're like, Lopmon's like, okay, that big threat was Millenniumon, and he's being revived now, whatever. And Lopmon is like, "Oh, I'll give you a tool. Let me go reactivate these things," and basically reactivates these Commandamon that were sleeping and sends them out to find everyone. And then they've basically just been riding one of them around. But yeah, it's that's how they got introduced, and they've been riding this Commandamon ever since. I think it's something that came out of the complete blue for the season. I don't think it's ever existed in Digimon before,
Gotcha.
but it's cute. It's Appa mixed with Kappas, and I think it's worked pretty well. It I think that's one of the few things that I'm gonna go back to the original adventure someday and be like, they didn't have a Appa Kappas thing? Huh. Weird.
No, they just walked.
Yeah.
Because we had character back then. We would walk to we would walk to the Dark Tower in the snow uphill both ways. Things were back better, but no, I'm just kidding. The point that I was trying to make before I got distracted by remembering that is I think that the one thing that I've seen in the 3 episodes that I've watched that I've gotten the impression of, okay, this is going to lead to something in the future was the shiny USB thing that Koshiro had from their little trash adventure in the episode that I didn't watch just prior to the Edamon one, and how then Mimi was just like, just put it in your computer, you freaking coward, and that will kind of show them the way to go. But that's just kind of it. It's just like, okay, they've got a map.
Yeah, I think the map might be the final realization of that. I mean, the other thing is that that is a real physical product for their new vital bracelet fitness tracking thing. So it's a real life product that I guess they just
Oh
shoehorned
God!
in the
All
show
right,
to like
that's why.
yeah.
So, I mean, it would be nice if here's the thing: is that if there had been a thing in one of these episodes that I watched that seemed like there would be like a payoff later down the line, maybe one of these episodes that had caught my attention and been like, okay, that was kind of a fun thing. Maybe I would have gone, oh, I wonder where that's leading, and
Mm.
then maybe I would be encouraged to watch it a little bit more. It's it's one way of looking at this. If you just want to tune in and watch a spectacle each time, that's fine, and I think that it succeeds at that. It's just I want the other thing in addition to that. So
Yeah, and I think there's totally a good balance of that could exist where it's like if there was any reference to like the backstory we got about Makamon or this world in this episode that felt like it connected to the rest of the plot somehow, and then it's like, oh, well, I was invested in Makamon, so now I'm invested in how this resolves. But instead, it's just like,
yeah, he's just going to be gone next episode, I assume.
yeah,
So
yeah. Well, next question or next comment from at King Millenniumon. I can see a lot of people annoyed that MetalGarurumon, a very iconic Digimon, is wasted in a reveal like this. I see where they're coming from, but at the same time, we know MetalGarurumon saved the bigger episode for Crestgarurumon, right? Also, the next episode looks lit.
it's got Takeru. No, it doesn't.
Just taking every opportunity to hate on Takeru.
Yeah. Well, for my money, I think that if this kind of thing is the norm of, okay, there's a thing happening, we need a new Digivolution, then if the plot itself I thought was fine. I've kind of given up on that's a waste of the big development now. And especially as someone who's not regularly watching the series, I thought that as someone who came in with no context and saw it happen, it was fun to see it happen. So
Yeah, and I think they couldn't really have like a big dramatic like end of the world type scenario for each of if they're gonna show off 6 normal megas and then 2 like the holy ones being special or whatever, like
mhm.
even 6 times they couldn't do that 6 times in a row and have it feel impactful at all. So like
Yeah.
yeah, I don't mind it being a fairly chill episode.
If you're going to have a Monster of the Week series, then not every monster can be this is the end of the world, things are really dire kind of situation, because then it starts to feel uh, you're not going to be convinced that it's a really dire situation eventually when that keeps on happening. So, yeah, a more low key kind of thing is fine with me.
Yeah. I mean, it would have made sense. Like, I think most Digimon series are structured around, like, starts off Monster of the Week, and then by the time they're in this stage and they're getting these final evolutions, then it's, like, fighting bigger threats that persist and stuff. And for whatever reason, whether it's through COVID, whether it's because of COVID, whether it's just because the
Hmm.
show's aiming to be something different, it didn't go that route. And, oh well, I guess it's just a different thing.
Who knows what the intention was? All we can judge is the way that it turned out, really. So.
Yeah. At Austin LC23 said, in the past 2 episodes, Gatomon had lines about how they need to be hurrying to Faga, but also doesn't seem to care about stopping for soccer, burgers, and races. It makes her characterization, one of the strongest / only decent ones in the show, feel inconsistent, and I totally agree. Yeah, it's like an unfortunate casualty of the way this show is structured. It doesn't really make any sense.
I mean, I guess that stopping for a race isn't too big a thing, but I think after the first one ended in guns being fired, Gabumon being knocked out, and all that stuff, then she should have probably said something about like, okay, we're wasting time and potentially our lives here. We've got a job to do. I could understand when they took, the day to hang out with Petaldragon because that's a really big deal. Here's this, pseudo legendary Digimon that they've got to deal with. And then there was the whole thing in the episode prior with Volcamon and Edamon, and they kind of had to address that because they were being screwed with directly by Edamon's voice. So that didn't really come up in those cases, but yeah, this one was definitely like a whim of Yamato and Gabumon's, and then I would be fine with it being like, all right, we'll take a break for an hour and let you race. Oh, he shot at you. Maybe we should just move on and leave him. He's not hurting anyone. He's just stuck here on this racetrack. So situation dealt with. Bye.
Yeah, or like I feel like it would be standard in a show like this to be like to have some explanation of like, oh, Commandamon needs to rest for a day. We need a day to rest, so let's have
Sure.
adventure in this day. But this they've just, especially the first half of this episode, just felt like all sorts of narrative shortcuts. It's just like, oh, Makumon's on a race course. Oh look, we're on a race course. Oh look, we're here. Oh look, okay, this is all happening. Like,
Yeah, they just run into the situation. Yeah.
did not feel natural. But oh well. At Andy Lucas OE said, the implication that Makamon used a performance-enhancing drug, hid it, isolated himself by pushing with others, lied about it, and wanted to die as if penance for his previous sins was surprisingly deep for the series as a whole. Though my only change would be having Makamon try to fight the parasite before going full murder mode to show him trying to redeem himself, but falling back into the addiction because painting addiction as something that could be simply overcome with one act of friendship and kindness is maybe a little too simplistic for a kids show. Though saying that, this is one of my favorite Matt episodes we've had. His crest was on full show today, and I'm glad it didn't end in murder again like so many episodes have done. Your thoughts on Machman's redemption/addiction metaphor? And I think I totally agree with most of this. I don't want to say it's deep though. I think it's dark, but I don't think it's like I don't know, like it's surprising for the tone of the show and for the target audience, but I don't think it's like like showing some profound depth of the human condition or anything. It's like, oh, it has more substance than most Digimon plots, especially for the season. But I don't think it's like there's not tons to unpack and learn from it, like I would attribute to something being quote unquote deep. But I think it like we were saying before, it has some uncomfortable parallels if you take it a little bit too literally and like actually read into the metaphor. But I think it helps that it's literally a motorcycle to avoid being too explicit in trying to teach a lesson.
It is a parable, and it's not a perfect parable, but that's fine. The more general point is don't abandon people just because they've fallen. If there is potential for them to be redeemed, and there was, and they did, and that's what Yamato's friendship is all about: is being stubborn and punching the engines of Digimon motorcycles to make sure that their parasitic spider engine booster thing goes away. And I will say that like Machman's character was very simple but very easy to get into for me. I also thought that his voice was really cool. We were talking a little bit about his voice actor before we started the episode, Nobuyuki Hiyama, and all the stuff that he's done. And I thought that probably did play a big role in me. Like, oh, this guy's so cool. I like him. Again, I've got many black shirts with skulls on them. This is the type of person I am. But I did appreciate that, as much as he was trying to be this dark loner type, they're just like, no, don't kill yourself. That's not cool. So, but I definitely understand, the shortcomings of it. And we shouldn't just lower our standards just because there has been so little characterization in terms of this that like, oh, there's a little bit of it. We've got to appreciate this for what it is. So
yeah, I think it's nice that it like as this episode like being a parable and like teaching, like you should like Yamato not let people just you shouldn't give up on people when they've fallen down. I think it's also useful as a parable for you shouldn't be like Machman and give and push people away and fall down that dark spiral.
yeah.
And so I think it's nice how it's like Machman, like you were saying, there's a lot of parallels to like them both being lone wolf types, and Machman's kind of like the dark reflection of what Yamato could be if he didn't care about his partnership with Gabumon and stuff. So like, and I guess like even in the original show, Yamato had that dark side of like falling into a depression hole and along with Sora and stuff. So like this darker side has always been present with Yamato stuff. So I guess it's kind of a neat reflection to represent that in this way in the show. Like if I had taken my thoughts a couple weeks ago, I never would have thought that dark depression hole from the original show would be reflected in this show. So kind of neat that it took the form of a self-sacrificial motorcycle on steroids.
How does so he's on his own. How does he be? He's a motorcycle. What if he needs a pit stop? What if he needs does he get hungry? How does he eat?
Does he eat gas? He has a mouth.
Oh my gosh, does he eat gas? Where does he get the gas from if he's just is there just a perpetual I mean, I know he's Data and that's how he exists and it's a very easy excuse, but like, was he a small motorcycle at some point and he got was he a tricycle? Was he a tricycle before and he lost his training wheels when he got bigger?
Oh no, he like tore off his training wheels and like, I'm a hardcore motorcycle guy.
He went through his rebellious phase.
I was concerned because his like in one shot they show they show the full side view, and it's like this front wheel is like only a couple inches below his like throat and mouth, and I was like,
yeah,
if he talks while racing, he's gonna like scrape his entire chin off. Like, not good design.
Oh man, he must just have constant like debris getting flicked up into his chin. Jeez.
Yeah, it's a really should have thought better about his
How does he
feeling.
open the garage to get out? He doesn't have hands.
Uh, he operates on a clicker, I guess.
There you go. Voice activated. Yeah.
Next question from at Dak and Jackster. I said, pretty cool episode, though I kind of wish we got an alternate motorcycle themed evolution for Gabumon instead of his Mega. Do you think there are any pros to the Mega Digivolutions being treated more incidentally than most Digimon series? Um, I guess we mainly talked before about how there aren't really negatives. Or I don't think there are huge negatives to it. I think in terms of pros, like I think you kind of need to in terms of getting this many Digimon to do it. Like, and also that like in the original series, like War Grandma and MetalGarurumon were treated with tons of gravitas and like really
Mhm.
spectacular episode where they debuted and stuff, but it didn't tie into Yamato or Taichi's personalities.
No, not really. The situation got really dire, so they got a power up that they could then use for the rest of the series, and that was kind of it.
Yeah, so I think it's nice this way that it's like we can actually have a character focused episode for each of them to debut. Hopefully, we'll see if that actually
Huh,
happens.
maybe. Um, a motorcycle themed evolution for Gabumon sounds awesome, though. I would love to see a wolf motorcycle that Yamato rides around on. Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been cool to actually wait, I guess this ties into the next question. So the last question from Austin LC23. I feel like this episode and the Mephistomon episode should have been swapped. And for context, Mephistomon was the episode, the last one that was Yamato focused. And they clarify MetalGarurumon would have debuted in the Mephistomon episode, but as episode 45, with the Machmon race being the tease for it. Thoughts? After this episode, how do you feel the other kids' megas will go? And I wanted to bring this up because I like the way this is structured with like the debut of MetalGarurumon being tied into like something that would actually use his MetalGarurumon being tied into the racing concept. But I think it would have been cool if MetalGarurumon already existed by this episode, and then there was like a motorcycle transformation, like a transformer sequence to turn MetalGarurumon motorcycle mode or something. That would be cool because like he already is like a transformer basically. So let him transform.
I don't really know what Mephistomon episode is, so sure.
Yeah, it was you maybe saw screenshots of Gabumon being crucified.
Yes. Yes, I did see that. So you were right to not choose that one as one of the "did this actually happen" questions, because I did definitely see that happen. So
Yeah, so that was the episode where Gabumon got crucified, and that's how he's powered up now because he came back because he died for our sins. And I don't know Bible lore. I don't know what Jesus did.
wait, are you what? Are you are you screwing with me? Did that actually happen? Did they insinuate Gabumon had died?
No, he just
Okay.
he was going to be sacrificed if Yamato didn't save him, but then Yamato did.
Okay.
But it would have been nice if he had died. That's what I want.
Right. Tell me how you really feel.
I think the most absurd thing about that quote unquote crucifixion is that he had little like feet platforms, like
So
platforms.
we wouldn't get too uncomfortable.
Yeah. It's like, do you know the point of crucifixion? Like,
Well, it's so that people can see you.
oh yeah.
Put them up there. We're really high where people can look at you.
Yeah, it's really just promotional. It's
By the way, Gabumon, hold this flipboard while we've got you up on this crucifixion. Spin it so that people come to my used car dealership. And I run on the side in addition to killing Digimon.
Oh, so final thoughts of this episode. How would you rate it out of 5 cute little parasitic eyes that totally aren't a metaphor for performance enhancing drugs?
I enjoyed it. So I'm going to say a 3.5, I guess. I know that tends to be a harsher judgment than a lot of people give on Digimon episodes, but again, like I tend to be a very conservative in my ratings. So
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it makes sense and easy to be like, oh my god, this is fun and flashy, and give it like 5 stars, and then be like, oh wait, because I feel bad giving last week 3.5 because I'm like,
I would not have done that. I didn't like it as much.
yeah.
So.
I think at the time I was like, this is a little bit above average. So average would be 3, and it's above that. But now I'm like, was it above average, or was it just average? So, but this one I think I'm going to give it 4 stars because definitely better than last week, and I think it at first I was like, oh, is 4 stars too much? But then I'm like, I do really like the fact that it has that it has things to think about, which most Digimon seasons don't have, or
Hmm.
most Digimon episodes don't have. Like the fact that like it found a neat way to reframe MetalGarurumon's debut and made it friendship themed, tied it into the something that fit with MetalGarurumon's physical form, um, and found a way to actually tie in Yamato's crest, which has been difficult to work around in the past in Digimon. So, or at least has not always fit
Hmm.
as well as other crests attributes have. So I think it is commendable for that, and is fun. It was a fun concept to boot. So
Yeah. When you asked me to, go ahead and do this episode with you, I had not watched Digimon for over half a year. And I came in, I watched a couple episodes, but then when I watched this one, as someone who has, kind of stayed away from the series for a while, I had a good time watching it. Everything that was introduced in it got wrapped up by the end, which was, it's a nice thing to just kind of drop in and see that happen. And okay, cool. Uh, it's not it, but nothing to blow you away. So I think that there's a lot of good things to say about it in terms of how it overall just felt. And while there are definite shortcomings that we have talked about, I do come away from it overall positive, but not I'm going to rave about this. After we are done recording this. So
yeah, like it definitely feels like Digimon has like solidified into its groove of yeah, this is fun if you are a hardcore Digimon fan and are keeping up with everything, but it's definitely not the kind of like thing maybe we hoped it was after a couple episodes of like rave about how
mhm.
great the new season is and like get everyone who's been in Digimon hibernation to come out of the woodwork. It's more like yeah, yeah, it's nice. It's nice for the people that it's nice for. But yeah, who would your MVP be this week?
I guess that I would have to give it to Makmon. Just because, hey, one-off character who's polite that I was able to get into. But there were little bits here and there that I could understand. Just Yamato, he punched an engine, But
I think I'm gonna give it to I think the real MVP this week. Like he didn't have many lines, but I think you could really
okay,
feel his influence and how much
okay,
he really impacted Yamato. Like it was very subtle, but I think this show really
okay.
excels in the subtlety.
Why is it going to be Joe?
And that was it was Takaru.
Oh, really?
No, I just wanted to upset you.
Oh, okay. No, listen. If you were gonna say it positively, I would have listened to you.
I just wanted to make you upset, and now I'm upset that you're not upset.
Oh, come on! The one time I don't hate Takeru when his name is mentioned.
I think it's tough because like the candidates, it's really just Makman, Kalman,
It,
and Yamato, the only characters that existed.
yes. Well, I mean, like there were little side things that happened on the rest of the cast, but I think that the main dynamic of this episode was strong enough that it would feel like doing them a disservice to be like, well, Joe's spoken to a Mike as the color commentator of the race. Like it was a cool moment, but like, I mean, the other stuff was good, So
Yeah, I think I'm gonna give it to Makman because of those three, it's like had the most meat on the bone, the most depth, and was a good monster of the week,
mhm.
good mon of the week. But yeah, next episode is next episode 46, The Sword of Hope. And it seems like Takaru is gonna have to save Angemon from the darkness.
Oh man, my timing. Whew, dodge that one.
I know this is something that like is hard to pick up on from jumping into the show without the rest of the context, but like the the potential, like there was potential for a while there of like Angemon having some history with Devimon back when Devimon was a character, and then it just
Okay.
never happened. It would like never
Oh.
tied into anything. So like the fact that this teaser showed Devimon being involved somehow, I'm like, I'm not expecting much, but I'm expecting something now. So I'm like,
Hmm.
I'm not like super eager. I'm not expecting a ton, but I'm like,
No, I
okay,
understand.
this could be pretty cool, and I mean, I'm looking forward to it.
What if this show introduces Lady Devimon and she is like the most fleshed out, complex villain, and like she has a long-standing dark reflection of Angelomon backstory, and like it makes up the entire like ending run of the show. And she's not just, a cat fight excuse that's thrown into one episode like in the original series. Like it's the one time that the dynamic is reversed between the original and this version.
It's like they had like they had a budget for characterization and empathy and really good writing, and they were like, okay, let's put it all into this one thing. Let's like,
look, I like Lady Devimon.
I mean, the gays love Lady Devimon, so I mean that cat fight is like iconic in the gay community. So
I'm pretty sure outside of it too, but I understand. Yes.
yeah, I guess that's true. But no, I would eat that up. Lady Devimon's got to appear by the end of the season. It's probably going to be a one-off thing they murder and never think about again. So
I do kind of hope so, because if nothing else, I do think her design is really memorable. It is literally just like dark, edgy version of Anjouman, but it's still a really memorable, effective design with the the leather and the stitching and the red eyes. So
yeah. Well, on that Lady Devimon note, I think Lady Devimon has crashed the show and ended the podcast. But yeah, last week's Digiprompt was in honor of Paddledramon's sacrifice. What normal-sized Digimon would you want to see reimagined in a giant kaiju battle? And my favorite response came in from @KingMillennium on Twitter. And they said, Kaiju Bakemon, who struggles to jump scare people because of his immense size and deals with people constantly trying to look up his sheet as he floats overhead.
it's like a really weird version of a Boo from Mario.
Yeah. I imagine him trying to like hide behind buildings, hide behind skyscrapers, and like but like constantly fighting against people trying to look up his skirt. I mean, cheat. Well, anyway, this week's Digiprompt is, what two Digimon would you want to see compete in a deadly high-speed race? Send those responses or general feedback to potages@gmail.com, to @potages on Twitter, or in the episode comments on potages.com. Share the podcast with your friends, who will save you from a dark downward spiral by biting you like a chew toy when you fall off a cliff. And just magically save all of your problems.
Yeah.
It would be awesome if you leave a review on Apple Podcasts. It only takes a minute, and each review helps a ton. If this is your first episode, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever else you find podcasts. So, Nick, thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me at NickFTime on Twitter. That's NIKFTIME. You can also check me out on Weekly Manga Recap, which I do with Rolo T. That's Weekly Manga Recap available on Podbean, on iTunes, on Spotify, and on YouTube. Just do a search for Weekly Manga Recap. We've been doing that show for close to a decade now.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it kind of stuck up on us. And I'm currently also working on a secret project, which by the time that you get this episode out, will probably still be like a month or so out before I post it. But I might as well mention it now. So.
Ooh, secret project.
Yeah.
All right. So stay tuned for that secret project. And I am definitely Jeff on Twitter. And you can also check out my general anime podcast, Love It or Weeb It, where recently came out with a full review of Jujutsu Kaisen. And you should also check out the preview episode we did in the first 3 episodes of Jujutsu Kaisen, where Nick was a guest.
Yes.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
And this coming week, we should have episodes on full season of Skate the Infinity and Idol 7, which I think I also promised would be coming out last week. So, but anyway, they're still in the works. They're still coming out. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening, and I'll be back next week to talk about episode 46, The Sword of Hope. Bye.
Bye.
And remember, never stop digivolving.
Would that make him more or less prone to a chant to drive him away?
Oh, no.
Do you think?
Okay, so that is the one thing that you missed in that Mephistomon Gabumon Resurrection episode, is that there is the return of that weird aspect of the original show where Joe ends up assisting Yamato and like defeats an army of Digimon by just it's not like a mind over matter thing like in the dub of the original season, and it's also not a Buddhist sutra thing like in the original dub of the original Japanese dub.
Mhm.
It's just him studying. He just like recites lines from his textbook, and it hypnotizes everyone. And it's like, what? What just
Okay.
happened?
Oh my god, he's so boring.
Yeah, I think that's what they were going for, but it like literally hypnotizes them, and it like gets them to like, yeah, I don't know. It had like they animate it with having like these big hypnotic rays and stuff, and it's like,
Okay.
wow, the power of Joe's boringness is so strong.